Okay, all right. It's my first time to film the Portable Clint at night, and I thought it was appropriate because of my next guest. I'm very excited about this guy. I've known this guy. When did we shoot our film? It was your film, but when was that?
We shot
Oh, here he is. He's already in the picture. Let's bring him in.
Yeah,
George
sorry,
Griffith. George Griffith. Hey, man. What's up, dude?
How you doing, Clint?
Look at you. I'm fantastic, man. Wait, before you get in, let me just say, so it was, what year do you think it was?
That was 2011.
2011, this gentleman, this is a real actor, guys. This is a real filmmaker. I have a lot of respect for this guy. He put me in his first movie called From the Head. And I absolutely loved the movie. I loved the experience. I loved that we got down and dirty when we worked.
Yeah, we did.
You pushed me to a level that I needed to be pushed. And and I dug it, man. I totally dug it.
It was a great experience.
Yeah, it wasn't just a part where I just show up and say 2 words. I had a point to it, and you treated me like I was just important as everybody else, and I dug that big time. But anyway, enough about me. This is about you. George Griffith, will you tell them about you a little bit?
Well, I can tell it From the Head's a great place to begin because that is in many ways where I arrived. And From the Head was my film that I wrote and directed, and I played the lead.
Yes, you did.
It was based on my actual experience of being a bathroom attendant in New York City. In a strip club.
In strip club. What year did you actually have those jobs?
That was when Giuliani was mayor. It was in the 90s, in the early 90s.
Okay.
Early mid 90s, and the atmosphere was different, in New York. But I was an actor, and guys and gals were doing waiting tables, and that didn't really suit my personality, because I was doing that, and then I quit abruptly. Different story. And I walked into a theater, and I said, "Does anybody have a job? Something." This guy was like, "Yeah, come." And I said, "That bathroom thing, I can't do the bathroom thing." And a week later, I said, "Well, do you still have the bathroom thing?" And I started doing that, but I would write down everything. That was like the worst job, and I was like, I want to write down everything. I'm gonna make something else, because you could tell that it was just poetry happening.
Do you remember the name of the strip club you worked at?
I worked in many. I worked in about 4 or 5. A couple of them are still there, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you write everything down?
Wrote everything down, wore a tape recorder at one point.
Really?
And I would come home and I would write it on this little, Apple computer that I had from high school. And I transcribed many tape recorders. And I would pass the recorder on to the guy coming in after me, and I would say, "Hey, if somebody good comes in, will you record it for me?" And so I did this, and then I lost all those files, all of them, and I was heartbroken because I can't make that shit up.
Right.
And years later, when I got out here to LA, I was telling the story to somebody, and they were like, "You should make something of it," which people say about everything.
Sure. It's so easy just to say that.
Because you should, maybe you should. I don't know. I don't think. But anyway, for whatever reason, I started to write them all. I started to write down scenes, and then I did like what we started calling webisodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because at the time they were just 1 minute. 1.5 minute where a guy would come into the bathroom and he would deal with them, and then they would leave.
Yeah.
And then I used those actually to raise money for the feature.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I did about 9 of them. Sorry, I did about 9 of them, and they were very good. And I selected scenes. Some of the people who ended up being in them, and I shot them really economically. 2 days. I paid this bartender. I tipped him to let me shoot while I was setting up, and I would have actors wait in their car, and I would call them in. They would run in. We'd shoot their scene. The difference was, in the film you stay with him in the bathroom. This they would end when the customer would enter and leave. And so I put those together, and I had about 15 minutes of content about that at that point. And I started to use it as a representation of what the film might be like, because the script was coming across as unusual, you know, because it was just in one place. But I think of it as a road movie, you know.
You know what? I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah, you know, just the road's going by.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the funding, and then you make it. How did you get green lit?
Well, the script and the film would later have a similar sort of reaction. The script, when people read it and they liked it, they loved it. You know, they were like, it was more a curiosity was really sort of sparked in certain people when they would read it, because it read really rapidly, and some people just thought, nothing's going to happen, and I was thinking something's going to be happening every second.
And it did.
Yeah.
So many different characters coming in, man.
Oh, there's 63 speaking characters in that, and so my brother-in-law started championing the script, and he was calling it. He was saying it was like Swingers, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
And he got some money, and then at the time they were talking about maybe shooting on the Red camera, and I didn't really have any familiarity with it, but people around me seemed to. And but then I got this DP involved, and I said, hey, maybe we can convince them to let us shoot the film.
Okay, I remember.
And that's what we did. Yeah.
I remember we shot it at the Mack Sennett
Studios in Silver Lake. Yeah.
Tell me about that studio. Wasn't that a legendary studio place where we filmed that?
Yeah. Chaplin had shot movies there. You know, you can see where the ceiling would be removed. Like, you could slide the entire thing over, and they would shoot during the day and use natural light, which would be a beautiful thing. And lots of films from that time shot there. And when we shot there, it had been slowing down, right? Yeah. And it had been a lot of music videos, and we went in on we asked them when they didn't have anything in there, you know? And we said, hey, that's when we're shooting. And so we built the set in Northern California, and then just brought it down.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Like the day before, yeah.
So the set is basically just a bathroom. Mm-hmm. You just built a bathroom. It's
based on a bathroom that I worked in, because when I was writing that script, it was I had to manage the traffic flow, since it was you know, it's all in continuous time. So keeping track of where people were, you know, I had an aerial view of it when I was writing, so I could tell, you know, who was going to what urinal, and you know, because I knew where everybody had to be to keep it feeling like the bathroom traffic felt. Right.
You know? You had so many great characters in the movie that I still see at auditions today.
Yeah.
And we always talk about you, man. I mean, about how you put a great cast of characters together.
Yeah.
And so I'm honored to be a part of that. And I mean that too. I'm not just saying that. That's the reason why I wanted you to be a part of this, because the majority of the people that I'm interviewing mean something to me, and you meant something to me by giving me that great part. So thank you. All right. So you make it.
I make it, and before I make it, I happen to have a very significant thing happen in my life, which is I interview David Lynch.
They interview David Lynch. Okay. Now, what does David Lynch mean to you?
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And David Lynch was huge for me. His movies were very important. We kind of thought of him as our own a little bit, because he was there when he did Eraserhead, when he worked in Eraserhead, or when he came up with Eraserhead. We all had these different ideas of how Eraserhead was a Philadelphia story. And then Twin Peaks came out when I was a senior, and it was my favorite.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Twin Peaks, and then I moved to NYU, to New York City. I mean, in between the seasons, you know. So like, it was just, I was a senior when Twin Peaks came out. It was like lightning for me. And then Fire Walk with Me came out while I was in New York. Wild Heart came out. Well, that was my first year, and like, David's movies were so important to me that I just wanted to get into them. And I remember when Twin Peaks got canceled, I was crushed, because it was a huge part of my plan. It was like, because, you know, I just thought, you get into a good acting school, you finish, you get out, you show you want to be on,
Right.
you just be on it,
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah.
I was like, I'm perfect for this fucking show. I should be on Twin Peaks. Right?
Yeah.
And because I'm dialed in. So anyway, years later, my brother-in-law had a radio show on Sirius Radio, and it had a lot of authors, and it was really cool guests. And I was watching these people come on, and I was listening to the show in the car, and I mentioned having David in it. He had just put out Catching the Big Fish, the book.
Okay.
And I got a hold of that book, and it was really had a big impact on me. And so I began to do a research. Sort of, at the time they were bringing meditation into schools in California.
He's part of the what kind of meditation?
Transcendental meditation.
Yes.
Yeah, the David Lynch Foundation. Was very young at this time, and David had put this book out and was doing a tour to promote it. And I said, you guys should have him on. And I did this prep work for it, and I sent it to them, and I was like, this should be good. And it was really extensive. You know, it was connecting. Like, there was a lot of research that had come out at that time that I was implementing into their prep work, and it was all the stuff about David's films and his painting and his music, like everything. It was really comprehensive. Finally, they were like, why don't you just do it? Because he wants to learn all this.
Right.
And I was like, I'll come and do it. So I did. That was April 1st of 2009. Okay. So at that time, after the interview, I went to lunch afterwards because I made that happen, right?
Right.
And then when we're going to lunch, I see where he's sitting, and I'm like, no one but me is getting that seat next to Lynch. So I got that seat.
Nice.
Hip check my sister-in-law, but whatever. And when the conversation went low, I asked David a question.
Were you nervous when you asked him any questions at all? Like, was your heart pounding 100 miles per hour?
I had just interviewed him for an hour and a half.
Okay.
At that point, it had shifted a little bit.
Got it.
And we had kind of been through something.
Yep.
And that was, by the way, that was like a pressure cooker. Because I'm talking about this guy is over here eating ketchup sandwiches. Man.
I know. I saw. Yeah.
So we do the interview, and we kind of had gone through the thing. I'm talking about like Blue Velvet sitting next to David. It was like, there was a lot of pressure. So the lunch was like, let me just ask you a couple things before you go.
Yeah.
Because I may never have this chance again. And I asked him some really important things about making movies. And he told me a couple of really important things. I said, I'm going to make this movie. This is what I remember. I said, I'm going to make a feature. It's about a bathroom attendant. The whole thing takes place in the bathroom. He said, all right. And it was for a person who didn't immediately try to like subvert it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, everybody would be like, so what else happened? What about? And he just liked it. You know what I mean? And I told him a little bit about it, and then I just shut up. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to make it and send it to you. And he said, do it.
I got goosebumps right now, man.
I'll tell you, it was a huge moment in my life. So I was like, it gave me something to drive towards. I just started meditating. And I'd already been trying to make the film, you know, but this was like, it was just a perfect kind of acknowledgement. You know, you need a little bit of your tank. You know what I mean? You start to lose wind in your sails.
Yep.
Try to keep yourself going, but like talk about. I mean, this was so beautiful, and also it was so specific. You know what I mean? It was exactly the person that I wanted to be connected to, and I didn't think that was coincidental or
I don't think so either.
Accident or something like that, or luck either. I don't believe that.
Same here.
And so I reached out to him, and I came back to LA, and we got the film made, and we did it, and it was when I finished it. I went back through the emails, and I found his assistant, and I asked her. I said, you know, I told David I was gonna send him the movie when I finished. Do you think I could send it? She said, sure. And so I did, and honestly, that was like enough. You know, like I just thought like I finished that. Like I sent it to him. I don't think he really watches it. And I got an email a couple weeks later, you know.
Okay.
And it was from him, and it was just really effusive, and he loved it.
Wait, hang on a second.
Okay.
You're at home. You're checking your emails.
I'm at home, and it's not the best day.
Okay.
I remember staying on the steps, and I just started reading it. I couldn't believe it. Tears were just, and my wife was like, "Is everything okay?" And I was like, "I can't." I just held up the thing and let her read it, you know. And then I immediately was like, I didn't know what to do really with it, you know, because it was such a, it had been systematically been rejected from every film festival that it had been sent to. And that was affecting everyone around me's morale for the project.
Sure.
And I kind of was like, I never thought it was going to like really take off at the festival circuit. I could see how it might, but you never know, right?
You're right.
You can't plan those things. But this was just incredible, you know? And so that happened, and then it got, you know, some distribution that wasn't extraordinary, but David gave a quote that was on the cover of it, and that was like pretty much like victory.
Tell me the quote again, please, because I actually own it. But
beautifully written, beautifully directed, beautifully acted, beautifully filmed.
I mean, how can you get a better compliment than that from your guy?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's just big right there. I mean, we could be done right there, but we're not done.
Well, that's a good story because you don't just throw shit against the wall and hope for stuff to stick. You find your place you want to be, and you think that you're going to make it work with them, or you try to get to them. I think.
Right.
That's important.
Yeah, totally.
You surround yourself with the people that you want to be with the same way.
Amen, brother. Totally. Okay, so the movie comes and goes.
It doesn't get. It has a couple of very big, cool festival screenings. It airs at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. It's the first film with nudity ever to play at that museum, which I loved, and that's my hometown. So everybody poured into that theater. Right? It was the Q&A was 3 hours. There's some very big, fun things, but it kind of just happened and then went away. You know what I mean?
But by the way, for me, what was big is I did a Q&A with you after one of the screenings in Hollywood.
Yeah, I did have a theatrical at Hollywood.
Yeah. So that was always fun to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the movie is out. Tell me the next thing that happens in your life. Tell me where you go after that.
Well, then there's a lot of, for me personally, there's a lot of who cares what else happens, honestly, in a quiet way inside, because having David acknowledge that and no one else acknowledging it is a very conflicting experience.
Sure.
Because it kind of puts me in this place of I feel like I've served it well, but I'm disappointed because my opportunities don't change right afterwards.
Right.
And at that point.
By the way, it's a great film. I just want to go on record. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Thank you. I wish everybody would see it. I'm very proud of it.
And I just want to say this: it's not full of porn because it takes place in a strip joint.
Honestly, I smuggled that movie. That is a love story. That's a love letter to New York City. It's a movie about people who are, struggling to connect.
Yes.
Who you love.
Yeah, exactly.
But you say that, and no one wants to make that movie. You say, hey, I'm making a bachelor tender porn and a strip club. They're like, here, we'll put a stripper on the cover.
Yeah.
No, but what happens in this time is really interesting because I have a creative accolade on top of a creative victory on top. I stuck to my guns, man. The thing David told me at lunch was keep Final Cut. I kept Final Cut. It's not easy to do with any budget, because people get assertive about things, you know what I mean, and people who have money get assertive, and rightfully people have sort of roles and sort of a say in things, and keeping that and negotiating that is hard.
Did he give you any other advice at that table? I know he says keep the Final Cut.
I had asked him a couple of things about things that he had said in Catching the Big Fish that were new, like not shooting on film any longer, which was when he and put that in the book, it was kind of a newer thing for him to say.
Yeah.
And that was sort of disappointing and mystifying to me, so I asked him about that. He talked about that a little bit. I asked him something actually about, that I'll never forget, because I asked him about, because we've been talking about meditation and bliss and these things, and I said, I always struggle because I always feel like I should be existing in a dark, or at least adjacent to darkness, or held adjacent or misery nearby. And you know what David said?
What's that?
Bullshit, dude.
Really?
Bullshit. Yeah. And he said, you think I have to shoot somebody every time I shoot a word or something? And I was...
Good point.
It like really spun me for a loop because I had really been torturing myself quite a bit up until then, you know, and I laid off of that quite a bit after that conversation, you know, like everything he said, I decided to apply, right? That's why I got excited about the book, honestly, because it was more. I felt like there were some answers or at least some clues, you know.
Okay.
And so during this time, people ask me, offer me some other kinds of movies, right? That I'm not right for. And like, it's just like, it's disappointing, you know, because I stuck to my guns and I made exactly the movie I wanted to this day, proud of it. I don't know if it's single,
you should be.
I don't regret about it. That casting process was a joy, you know, but I also, we could talk about that all day too, because I was afforded casting that people aren't usually allowed, and they usually shove people down your throat. They usually send in headshots face down with the resumes up. You can't find good people that way.
No, you're right.
Let them come in the room. We'll look at their resume after we see them. And
Wow,
talk to
that's
them.
awesome. Yes.
You know, but that's unpopular. You know, because people in the same conversation are talking about triggering numbers and sales and stuff like this, and those things are real.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just a difficult thing they're a challenging thing to negotiate when you want to keep when you're trying to insulate the thing that you love.
Yeah.
Which I knew I did with From the Dead. It was disappointing that we were all young. We didn't even know what to do with the David Lynch quote, honestly. Like, I should have piped that into something, but it didn't. It was just on the cover, and it's just people would be like, is that real? It was like, you know what I mean? Like, did you do that? And so time passed, and then I was just really frustrated, and I wanted... Something that happened was surprising to me is that people were perceiving me as a director, not as an actor. And I was kind of thinking that, like, from the head, I would be getting acting work like crazy, right?
Okay, yeah.
But not so much. Lillard called me and said, do you want to do a couple plays in Scotland at Edinburgh? And I said, yeah, and we started working them. And out of nowhere, I got this email saying, audition for this show, for this director. And it was Joanna Ray, was the casting director.
Okay.
And I always knew her, because she did Tarantino and she did David. So I got real excited. I went during rehearsal, and I went to this thing, and it's not an audition, it's just an interview. You know, you just talk, there's cameras, and you just talk about, like, that morning.
Who's asking you these questions?
Joanna Ray.
Okay.
She's done all David's movies, you know.
And you know what's going on. You know what's for David.
Well, I figured out real fast, because no one knows who I am on earth except for David Lynch.
Are you nervous? Are you yourself? Are you too nervous?
No, I'm myself. Because I know this. I know that much. I know that David thinks that auditioning is undignified. He's affording you this chance to come in and be yourself. That's at least the way I interpret it.
Okay.
And so I was myself for sure. I definitely came home and was like, I don't have to worry about getting that gig too. You know, like, I didn't think it really went well. It's just hard to gauge when there's no real metric.
Yeah.
And I let it go, man. I really let it go, because I just thought it was so nice that he even called me in.
Now, George, did you really let it go, or like every day were you kind of looking at your phone or your computer looking for an email?
Honestly, I was doing 2 plays at the same time. I didn't have that much space in my head for anything, because I'm getting older and I can barely remember 10 lines.
Sure.
2 full plays. So,
sure.
So no, and also I was trying to just have each thing with Lynch to be its own thing. And to be grateful for it.
Yeah.
And not push it, right? To just let it be and see what would happen, because that had been working out, you know. And then, man, like, right in the middle of that run of that play, when I was getting, like, tired and, like, everybody's getting grouchy, I got an email.
Tell me what the email said.
I got an email. The first email said, we're putting a pin in you, which was kind of like an older-fashioned, like an older kind of thing. But I remember I had just finished meditating, and the guy who I was living with had just got a pin for some fucking show. I was like, that's good for you. I was like, I just got... But the thing was, it was more than like one day. it was a lot of dates, and that's when I just couldn't believe it, because I just thought, I just wanted to like pump gas and be like, have a good one, you know, or something, and anything, you know, coffee, I don't know what, and then, man, I got home, and they said, welcome aboard. So I got back to America, and I got that news.
George, that is so awesome. Okay, so you get the news, you're excited.
Yes.
Tell me about first day. Tell me about the night before you filmed. No, so this is Twin Peaks that you just had booked. The new
Twin Peaks: The Return. Yes.
The Return of Twin Peaks.
It is not allowed to tell anybody at all. And everything's not allowed to tell anybody, right? It's a total secret. Go pick up pages, come back, and get ready. I'm ready though, man. I'm ready. I'm ready like weeks in advance. I'm telling you, I'm ready for every scene. My first day.
I bet. I
was ready for everything. I mean, I was ready.
Did you ever mess up and he kind of yell at you and that hurts your feelings because the guy that you cherish, I mean, did you just take everything, okay.
No, I remember he pulled me aside my very, very first night and told me some stuff, secret stuff, good shit, really good stuff. It was like jet fuel.
Wait, can you give me a tease of what that is? Something?
He said, one thing he did say to me, which if you're familiar with the show, he did say to me, you're such...
This is about your character in it.
He just pulled me aside and we just talked for a minute, and I just listened to him. And honestly, yeah, he was the greatest director. I mean, I felt like he created an environment where people were doing their best. You know?
Yeah.
And then within that, I feel like there's just so much mobility. You know, so when someone directs in those moments, I also feel like David would direct non-verbally a lot.
Yeah.
At least with me. I think I've watched him, because I watch all the extras on the thing. I watch him with my castmates, and he's different.
I know what that means, but tell them what that means non-verbally. Like, by the way you did a take, you would look at him and realize he wanted a little something different. But
no, he would. I'm gonna say something. So he would connect us, and there would just be some kind of communion, like a communication. And then he would say something very, very distilled, you know.
This is a crazy thing what I'm about to say. It could very well not be crazy. But because you guys both meditate, do you think you guys connected in the meditation?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think David is a very... he's just a warm person, you know what I mean? I think that as a director... I just felt, you know, I had a lot of range with what I did in the show. I just trusted him.
Okay.
And also, I'll tell you something. In the very beginning, Kyle MacLachlan said something to me. He said, the boss always gets what he wants. So I would sometimes go, God, you know, I'd say to Kyle, I'd say, you think you got that thing you want to try? They're like, and then they're like, we never do it. They get there, he's like, yeah. The boss always gets what he wants. So
that's a great bottom line, to give him what he wants, because you know whatever you want to try, it's just not going to be it, because that's not what he wants.
100%.
Wow, man, dude. So Eric Edelstein told me this story, that he was your idol.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the word idol is correct, but let's just say idol. And then all of a sudden you find yourself working with him, and I said, wow. Because Eric Edelstein was also a part of the Twin Peaks. Did you meet him on set?
No, we were Sabrina Sutherland. I've been watching the show by myself because we didn't know anything was going to happen. You know? So everybody was watching every week, and she called me and asked me to come watch with a bunch of castmates, and a lot of them were OGs, like from the first thing. So I freaked out a little bit.
Oh, I bet you did.
But I was like, I said to her, I usually watch alone. And like, I didn't say that to be antisocial, but I had this sort of like ritual, and I was so goddamn excited about it.
Sure, I could see, yeah, man.
And so I just said, I usually watch by myself. And she was like, well, maybe tonight you should watch with us. And she said it like twice, and I'm like, oh man, I don't think this is going to be a good night for me. So
sometimes you have to say yes.
That was the night that was my last night. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got it. Okay.
And so I met Eric that night. He was invited that night because he was in that part two. And we became fast friends.
Yes, yes, you did.
Yeah.
And he finally watched From the Head. Mm-hmm. I told him to watch it. He didn't watch it. You tell him to watch it. He watches it. Hey. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is there, you walking away from that experience, what do you take away from all of that? Sum that up. Do you go for after what you want? Did you pinpoint this with your meditation? Did meditation help you do that? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, I would say choose your weapon wisely, and because I think that you need to have crosshairs on something that you want. Tell you a story. I'd better tell you a short story than tell you a long
Sure, sure.
I remember I heard this thing where Tim Roth asked Gary Oldman, "How do you do these American accents so perfectly?" And I'm like, spot on. You like fool the Americans. Oldman said, "Well, I picked a city, and then I picked the neighborhood, then I picked the street, and then I picked the house. And I find somebody there.
Wow.
And if I'm off a little bit, I'm still in the goddamn neighborhood."
Dude, that's good.
So to me, you get specific about who you want to be with, man. Your life is going to be challenging in the arts. Why would you not do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seek out the ones that you're meant to be with. You know who they are.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, sometimes we have delusions of grandeur. You know what? Follow them. They'll cash you out. You know, they'll take care of themselves if they're not meant to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you'll get geared down to where you're at, I think. But I really believe that intentions, for me anyway, have been very, very, very important. You know, like I know that I put great intentions towards working with David. You know, not all of it consciously, but much of it consciously, especially in the later part of that whole, you know, epic tale. Sorry, I busted the time.
No, you're good. Dude, first nighttime shoot and first one over 30 minutes, and you deserve it. What's next? What do you want to do? You've done that. What do you want to do now?
Well, I have another script, and I want to direct, and I'm out to some people now. You know, I'm just trying to. It's smaller. It's much smaller. It's 4 actors, and it's female leads. You know, it's very different from the Head, but at the same time, it's the same. You know, it's people who love.
Did David teach you something to take to your next film?
Well, yeah, you know, his set was extraordinary because it was just people helping each other. You know, there was nothing. It was very unified feeling. You know, and that just changed everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to go back. You know what I mean? I would sign on. I would just go back. It was just great. You know.
Is there any more seasons coming out? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, I loved this one. You were a totally different other guest than all the other guests that I've had. Not saying that you're better than all the guests, but you're totally different, and I totally dig that. Because you are one of a kind. You always have been. I dig your style. I dig the way you dress. You got a pinky ring like old Hollywood. Man, I think we're done here.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, do me a favor. Will you tell everybody goodbye?
Goodbye.